Modern management theory and practice is mostly American. When the Second World War ended, it was mostly American corporations that were in a position to expand internationally. Then they realized what colonial powers had known all along, that people are different across the world. But colonial powers, by definition, could afford to ignore the differences to get things done, ultimately under the lash if necessary. Not so eminently democratic Americans, who would soon find out two problems. A, that workers would not respond to the same incentives with similar promptitude or intensity as back at home. And B, that the products on offer would make little progress in poorer markets. It is only natural that, at first, corporations would want to find more markets for the same products on their shelves. But because they were too expensive, the corporations were happy in selling older versions of the same, for instance, out-of-fashion car models, which nonetheless were still new to markets which were not yet integrated by globalized communications. But even those products turned out to be too expensive and sales unsatisfactory, requiring recurrent government favors by the way of tax cuts or corporate sales gimmicks like fractioning products either through credit or by downsizing, diluting or cutting costs, occasionally to the point of making the products unsafe. The result is that India suffers 140,000 fatalities a year in crashes, while none of its locally manufactured cars by world-renowned car brands withstand the global NCAP safety test. There were many other ways in which the products were inadequate to emerging markets. A well-known US cereals manufacturer found out too late that shelves at Indian grocery stores could not take their box sizes. They were too large. The same manufacturer also had to figure out how to sell cold breakfasts to a nation used to hot ones. This was not the only case where demand had to be created. Carbonated soft drinks was another, and the lack of appropriate refrigeration capabilities proved to be a hindrance, not to speak of the lack of refrigerated distribution channels. Emerging market conditions can be a challenge to medical corporations as well. Medical corporations have developed mostly with an eye on needs, but somewhat blind to costs, and costs rule in emerging markets. Distribution channels also challenge medical corporations, which are used to peddling their wares through medical doctors and hospitals. But it happens that in Mexico there is a telephone-based healthcare advice and triage service catering for over 1 million families for $5 per month. Could that offer a channel at least for advertising? In India, an entrepreneur offers a no-nonsense effective maternity care for about 1/5 of the price charged by competitors. How to price medical products under such a price disparity? Originally from Bangladesh, Vision Spring offers a business-in-a-bag franchise to relatively uneducated entrepreneurs trained to detect an ailment which progressively diminishes a person's capability to focus on nearby objects. Vision Spring's reading glasses, provided at $1 each, increase people's productivity by an average 35% in a country where 80% of the population lives on $2 a day. These are all local solutions, properly adjusted to the incomes and the educational competencies available in emerging markets, that foreign corporations must learn to work with. Vision Spring may have already distributed 1 million glasses by 2012, but over 1 billion are needed across the world. Vision Spring's great capillarity was achieved by piggybacking on the NGO BRAC. These are social entrepreneurs focused on aiding women. Vision Spring has now expanded to El Salvador. Big Pharma may find inspiration on initiatives like these to figure out how to distribute at low costs their wares in emerging markets. It is only recently that multinational corporations in emerging markets are beginning to be taught to find a need and fill it, rather than sell what you've got. This is why a consulting firm with links to a Harvard Business School professor spotted a need for laundry services. Brazil may be fit for low-end laundry services, provided with clean water, or even the upmarket dry cleaning services, but not India. There, the middle market is cornered between the same expensive laundry services they cannot afford and those offered by self-employed launderers who will hit the laundry against rocks in a polluted river and hand them back washed for a few cents. These crafty consultants sought to fill a need with a simple but safe laundry service that the hurried white-collar worker can afford. The consultants turned entrepreneurs placed their kiosk-based service in high pedestrian traffic places like close to supermarkets or where the people may be on their way to or back from work, and can drop and pick up their dirty clothes, which will be weighed and cleaned on the spot with safe water carried in the kiosk. The client is notified by SMS messages when the clothes are ready for pickup. Not bad at all. The same consultants also advised an Indian entrepreneur troubled by the lack of penetration of his American-styled large refrigerators in India. They taught him how to figure out what his potential clients needed refrigeration services for. It turned out that they only needed to cool off food one meal to the next. For the vast majority of their vegetarian Indian potential clients, there was no need for low temperatures to keep meat safe, let alone any use for ice. Besides, electricity supply was so erratic that whatever contraption would refrigerate, it should also have to operate on batteries, car ones if possible. In addition, because the population was relatively mobile, they would favor a refrigerator that could carry with them on their heads. Just in case you may be deluded in thinking that one solution may fit all, it will not. The same refrigeration solution would not work as well in Brazil. There, the electricity supply is more reliable, the poor are less mobile, and the requirements for refrigeration are greater. In Brazil, poor families still find it expensive to own and run a refrigerator. Therefore, in a shantytown, they might share a standard-sized refrigerator between the extended family who lives nearby. For instance, a grandmother may keep the refrigerator at home because she does the cooking for her grandchildren during daytime, and for her own children when they come back from work. All her income-earning children will pitch in with the cost of buying the food, the refrigerator, LPG canisters, and the electricity bill. An Indian-styled refrigerator that will not almost freeze beer or keep raw meat safe would have little purpose in Brazil. In any case, in the largest shantytown in Latin America, hosting 70,000 inhabitants, Rios Rocinha, this is Brazil's largest distributor of electricity appliances, Mr. Klein, opened a branch of his famed Casas Bahia. But if you stop to look at what is going on at his shop, people must already have refrigerators, because what they seem to be buying is the next comfort good, washing machines, air conditioners, and even microwave ovens. But serving markets, emerging markets, is not only a question of products and services, is it? It is also an issue of managing the operations. This requires people. There are not many operations which can extract a high enough margin from emerging markets to allow hiring the scarce and expensive English-speaking local management cadre. Therefore, If you're going for the middle market at all, you better learn to work with the true locals. True in the sense they are unlikely to speak good English, and they are likely to have relational values different from yours. In which ways? For starters, they are likely to be more collectivist-oriented. Now, there is a large theoretical discussion about collectivism, but to cut it short, let's assume that people of a feather tend to stick together. That is, in most emerging markets, people are group-oriented, conscious of the relationships and loyalties to the group. And, on principle, they distrust people from different groups. Not forever, but it will take longer for the outgroups to be accepted. This means, for example, that you may do better hiring by internal referrals than from the market. Why? Because if you have a good team to start with, they will be able to recommend someone they know who is capable and will fit in more smoothly and work better as a team than a know-it-all they will surely take longer to trust enough to work with as an effective team. Now, you might think this is true of all humans, and you're right, except that the way the people choose to become close is different. Masaki Yuko of Hokkaido University, Japan, argues that Americans and Japanese form groups according to different rules. Take, for example, University of Ohio supporters of the American football team in 1997. In this picture, it is hard to spot people not wearing the university's red. However, this graph seems to indicate that Hokkaido University students would rather be caught dead than wear their university clothing, because at least 80% of Hokkaido students say they almost never wear university clothing, whereas 50% of Ohio students claim to wear university clothing several times a month. This may lead some to argue that Americans are the collectivists and that Japanese are the individualists, as indeed it has been argued. But it would seem that what is at play is not so much identification with a group, but with a network that matters, because it's levels of trust, and Japanese trust more those that they are related with. And they don't need to ascribe colors for that. That collectivists or relational-oriented stick together also means that they have a strong sense of ownership of the work achieved by the team. Attempts by an outsider to figure out who was more responsible for the outcome are unlikely to go down well with collectivist people. This has important implications for the distribution of rewards. Mainstream managerial approaches will seek to identify overachievers and reward them accordingly. But those are more likely to be the ones despised by the group, not because they are effective, but because they are the ones who seek to stand out in teamwork. For teamwork, effective managers should reward teams rather than individuals. This is because out-group supervisors will, more often than not know which individual deserves more, if anyone does. Matters are likely to become worse if the despised, salient overachievers are the ones selected for promotion and become bosses. This does not mean that peoples of a relational orientation do not compete. They do, but between teams, not within them. Let me show you an example. Daniel Lewis is a simulated name of a real investor at a Venezuelan equity firm. He was in charge of acquiring 2 textile mills in South America. One was in Maracay, Venezuela, and the other in Colonia, Uruguay. The Uruguayan mill's higher productivity persuaded Daniel to invite 40 Uruguayan workers to move with their families to Maracay to improve output there. The initiative did not work as expected. The Uruguayans resented the cold shoulder received from the Venezuelans, bickering was rampant, and productivity remained low. Before sending the Uruguayans back to Colonia, Daniel made a last-ditch effort. He asked that the Uruguayans be exclusively entrusted with the denim unit at Maracay. This worked wonders. Left to themselves, Uruguayans increased their productivity, and this awoke healthy competitors from the Venezuelans, whose productivity rose as well. Being collectivists, most South Americans derive their identity from the groups to which they belong. They stick to neighborhoods where they build loyalty-bound networks, and they distrust those who are outsiders. South Americans work best with people they already know. These are traits South Americans share with many workers in emerging markets where much of the world's future growth is expected to come from. Global managers should pay attention to why Daniel's second attempt worked while his first one failed. Because collectivists perform best in teams made out of people they already know, they would take too long to become a high-performing team made up of a mixture of Venezuelans and Uruguayans. When left to work on their own, Uruguayans recovered the original teamwork spirit and performed highly enough to pique the Venezuelans to improve their own ratings. South Americans are competitive, but not individually. They compete in teams against other teams. Now, human beings across the world have enough in common for Goffey and Jones, the authors of the book Who Would Want to Be Led by You, to identify what peoples want from their leaders. Goffey and Gareth Jones discussing their book, Why Should Anybody Be Led by You?
So that leaves us with followers wanting community, authenticity, significance, excitement.
It turns out that all what Goffey and Jones claim people expect from their leaders can be found in a samba school. A Brazilian samba school delivers a world-class product in the form of a carnival parade. A samba school is the product of a community. It is a neighborhood at work, competing against other neighborhoods, samba schools. People at samba schools are usually moonlighting, but because they work closely knit teams of neighbors, competing with schools in other neighborhoods, they are extremely engaged in their work, able to pull an impressive 4,000-strong parade with floats and a percussion orchestra. Leading in a samba school is a true test of leadership, because leaders have no formal authority. They don't pay. Therefore, they must be authentic enough to seduce. In an emerging market society, this means that leaders must become part of the network. They cannot manage the distance that Goffey and Jones recommend in their book and still be trusted.
Você tem que ir na casa do componente, você tem que conhecer o componente, conhecer a mãe do componente, o irmão do componente, aquele negócio todo de quase família, né? A rua onde mora. Então eu tenho a facilidade de comunicação de massa com esse pessoal e o sentido de fazer com que eles gostem, eu trago de dentro de mim, eu tiro de dentro de mim e faço com que eu talvez seja um espelho daquela vontade, daquela garra que eu quero dos componentes.
Samba schools nurture the relational dimension of the organization. They also handsomely recognize contributions with titles. I have never been in a business organization with so many directors as in a samba school. Titles at a samba school carry no financial weight because people are not paid. But the people bestowed with such titles and ranks carry with them pride, wearing shirts with their rank and name embroidered on them. Rank is matched with empowerment. Leaders have a degree of autonomy and consequently develop the sense of ownership, which is crucial to success. A samba school is a community, a family, and if you've seen a carnival parade, you will have no doubt that there is a tremendous amount of excitement in it. Let's move on to India. In India, the Dabbawalas of Mumbai accomplish a great deal through a similar kind of teamwork. There, thousands of mostly illiterate Dabbawalas deliver 200,000 home-cooked lunch tiffin boxes daily to clients at their offices. Then they pick them up empty after lunch and return them to where they were collected in the morning. This means 400,000 transactions a day accomplished by 5,000 dabawalas, and over a century they have developed a color code which allows them to deliver tiffin boxes with such a low margin of error that Forbes magazine has awarded them a 6 Sigma rating. The untold secret for such a high performance is that most dabawalas come from the same district of Pune, a few hours away from Mumbai. They organize themselves in teams of about 50 to 150 dabawalas under a mukaddam, a boss, who has recruited them on the trust that stems from closeness with their families because they know each other and then they help each other out. Dabawalas collectively control the outcome and are rewarded equally. Such is the strength of a relational network based on a technology appropriate to their level of education. The significance of the dabawala service in delivering food is associated to what has been termed the gastrosemantics of Hindu India. Such wisdom and communal pride works wonders, and it works so well that the system of the dabawalas has not been challenged in over 120 years. Also in India, the Nehru Trophy boat race, held each August at the Punamanda Lake in Kerala, is an example of village-based competitiveness. The province of Kerala has a lake district where people move around mostly on water, rowing on boats. Being a good rower is a matter of pride. Competing to be the village with the best rowers is surely to be a matter of great pride. So the villagers in the region of Kutanand, the triumph of their village boat at the regional race is equivalent to the victory of a neighborhood samba school in the carnival parade. Something to be celebrated by the community until the next year's contest. The village gets together to build a 100-feet-long snakeboat to be manned by about 100 men and compete with similar snakeboats from other villages on other islands. The villages support their rowers during the long training season. The race itself is a major occasion that, like Lamba schools' parades, gather a large audience. Like the samba schools, the support of villagers is moved by a sense of transcendence, expressed in rituals. This is what gives significance to the events. I am a member of the Mocidade Alegre Samba School in São Paulo. And I can tell you for sure, you can find there the 6 elements that Goffey and Jones claim they make the best workplace on earth. 1. People can be themselves. 2. They have absolutely no doubt of what is going on. 3. They are being continuously empowered. 4. They are allowed to develop the sense of ownership which nurtures the pride of belonging. 5. They know that each one's contribution is meaningful. 6. Authority is respected because it is there for the benefit of the whole, and there is no red tape. And from what I have learned from the Dabawalas and the Kerala rowers, the same is true amongst them. That is some inspiration for you to manage people in emerging markets. That is the way they like to get organized when they are free to organize themselves. Perhaps this is why those organizational models perform so well. What can large corporations operating in emerging markets learn from all this? That finding a niche or a need and filling it is crucial to success in the middle markets of those countries. Continuing to focus on the top echelon will stifle their growth potential. Going for the very bottom of the pyramid may not pay as an entry strategy for a multinational. Once there, appropriate management of people is a second requisite. This requires building and maintaining an engaged corporate community, as this is crucial to success. This is especially true in emerging market countries where the workforce has experienced a great change and dislocation. In Brazil, the rural share of the population dropped from 50% to 15% over the past 40 years. China and India are in the midst of similar transformations. Africa will follow soon after. Corporations could fill the yearning for community and affection if they could bring themselves to manage locally as locals would like to be managed. At modern corporations, on the other hand, recruiting emphasizes competence over affinity, and leaders are appointed from above, frequently without considering the views of those to be led. Workers also usually cannot drift away from a poor leader unless they leave the organization. A successful Samba school, as the Dabawala Service or the Kerala Rowers, all share closely knit community-based organizations with a strong focus and great teamwork. Corporations need to learn from Samba School, Dabawalas and Kerala Rowers, whose members deliver even in the pouring rain for no pay at all, or as in the case of Dabawalas, for only equal pay. Hardly similar to mainstream managerial techniques. Also, allow for higher purpose beliefs to guide and inspire your collaborators in emerging markets. Whenever possible, remind people you're not there to sell pills or meet targets, but to fight disease and enhance well-being even at the workplace. That is something worthwhile living to work for.